فَوَاجِبٌ كَمَا إِبْنُ زُكْرِ بَيَّنَا. He's saying, as for hypocrisy, and here riya is closer to a type of hypocrisy that relates to veiling your wrong actions, hiding your faults. This type of riya is a riya that is wajib, according to Ibn Zukri. In other words, if somebody says to you, did you ever drink alcohol? You say, I never drank alcohol. If somebody asks you, did you ever steal? And you made tawbah from that, then you say, no, I never did that. He's saying that that's something that's not riya. That's actually that's actually really important. It's wajib. It's not considered a lie by Sharia. And I'll tell you why. My note there is that this is in fact a type of riya if the person desires others to consider him better than he is by concealing his misdeed from them. In other words, it becomes riya when you're doing it because you want people to think you're better than you really are. But it is an obligation to conceal one's wrongdoing, not for this reason, but so that misdeeds are not taken lightly by the community. Because you see, if I don't know that you've drinking alcohol, and I say, have you ever had alcohol? And you say, yes. I say, oh, then I'm not that bad, you know. You see, it kind of, it lessens the whole enormity. Because kabira means enormity. The word in English language, enormity, means a great evil. It's very similar to kabira. Kabira is an enormity. You don't want to make little of enormities. You want the society to actually respect. And I just added in there that although, because if people freely admit their transgressions, this leads to complacency and lack of shame. And although there's an obvious hypocrisy inherent in this, it is really a type of homage that vice pays to virtue, in order that virtue can act as a deterrent to the inurement of deviation in the social arena. In other words, you know, vice, in a healthy society, virtue is the norm, is the ma'ruf, and vice is the munkar. In an unhealthy society, the opposite occurs. So when you have a healthy society, vice has to pay homage to virtue by hiding itself. Do you see? So it's really, it's not a hypocrisy, it's a respect for virtue. And that's why the Sharia is honoring it. And the danger, see, this is what like Freud said. No, this is all hypocrisy, and really you're all seething with sexual lusts and with desire and all these things. So just let it all come out and you'll be healthy. And now, you know, welcome to 1998, right? Seriously. Where it's all, I mean, unbelievable. Newsweek, you can't really even read it now. It's the last few issues are unbelievable. The stuff, and there's no shame. None. I mean, this guy Will, writing, it's pornographic, and he's like a conservative commentator for Time or Newsweek or something. And there's no shame, because they're no longer paying homage to virtue. They don't even have the shame to hide it all. It's all like, the problem here is not what he was doing in the room. That's all fine. We all did this, no big deal. The problem is he lied about it. I mean, this is really the whole, so it's become all sick and perverse. And even some people are saying, well, big deal, everybody lies about that. It's not like lying about something really big. But it is big, it's an enormity. How did it become such an insignificant thing? Because in this culture, in the 1960s, in most cities in the United States, if an 1960s people, if an unmarried girl got pregnant, she disappeared. She disappeared from the community. And about 7 or 8 months later, she showed up again. And they say, oh, well, she went off, to stay with her grandparents. What she did was they sent her to a place to have her baby, and then they put the baby up for adoption. She came back into the community, and nobody knew about it. Because there was shame. That's 1960s. Seriously, that's not that long ago. In 1968, a woman was kicked out of Radcliffe for living with a man in the same apartment. 1968, Radcliffe was, at that time, still considered a reasonably radical place. And they kicked a girl out for living. Now there's co-ed dorms. I mean, who cares? So how did it get from, it got from that by having Big deal. Who cares? Belittling it. So Islam says no, it's better to have that hypocrisy, because what it is really it's honoring virtue. That's the important thing. It's not that there's that hypocrisy. That's seen as less harmful than what happens when it's all let it all hang out type attitude. Big deal. That is what's dangerous. Not the hypocrisy. And this again is the idea in Sharia of lesser of the two evils. They're both evil. You can see that. Obviously nobody wants to be a hypocrite or tell lies or say, no, I never did something and you did it. But the point is, the Sharia is saying there's a greater evil in saying that you did it. Because it's going to lessen the impact of the action when other people start saying, oh, he's doing that too? Or, oh, he did it? Oh, well, maybe it's not, that bad. So instead of having that attitude, no, of course not, I would never do that. Because there's a shock. Seriously, this is really serious stuff. And this is how the Muslims viewed the world, right? There was shame, right?
But you're saying that the intention is important. I mean, you're not lying to show yourself as a better person.
Right. What you're doing is you're trying to, what you're doing is you're recognizing you don't want this other person to lessen their fear and their disgust in the wrong action. That's the important thing. Well, see, even Imam Junaid, and I really think this is a healthy opinion. Imam Junaid said, if you do a wrong action and you make tawbah, forget it. Don't dwell on it. Have a fear of returning to it, but don't dwell on it. Because what that does, it results in guilt. It results also in a type of despair, and it results in a feeling of self-loathing, right? And you really shouldn't. Those aren't healthy feelings. They're not. If you make tawbah, astaghfirullah, and make a sincere tawbah, don't return to it, and then just forget about it, like it never happened, right? And that is a.
What happens if it's one of the big ones, like river or something like that, and you can't get out of it, and therefore you're in a state of disbelief?
Well, you're not. If somebody's in an enormity like a riba, that's not kufr. It is an enormity, and it's a bad one. And it shouldn't be taken lightly at all. But it doesn't take you out of the pale of Islam. You're still within the fold of Islam. It's an enormity. If you've gotten yourself into that situation and it's not easy to get out of it, right? Then you have to make tawbah and do whatever you have to do to get out of it. In other words, begin that process and make the tawbah, get out of it. Once you're out of it, you make, khalas. Tatub ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And tawbah has to be sincere. And the signs of sincerity is real remorse. You have nadama, that you leave it immediately, and you make the intention never to return to it. If you do that, khalas, that's a tawbah, and you should have a good opinion of Allah when you make tawbah. Like, I'm so horrible, I'm miserable, Allah will never forgive me. No, Allah tells us not to think like that. And that's like a Christian disease. A lot of Christians fall into that despair. It's interesting, there's a lot of complexity in Christianity, because they do have that tendency, and then the other tendency, like the Baptists, in Baptist Christianity, you can be the most outrageous person and really completely be convinced you're saved. And there's Baptists that are like that. That's why Baptist ministers, it's kind of this notorious thing, the Jimmy Swaggart syndrome, is that they really can do these horrible things and then get back up on the pulpit, and it's not a shock to Baptists. It's because, devil got you that time, you'll get him the next time,
You need to make tawbah for what you did before?
No. Al-Islam yajubu ma qablahu. Islam is tawbah. Islam is the tawbah of a non-Muslim from his kufr. And that, by consensus, is accepted. When you make tawbah as a non-Muslim by entering Islam, by the ijma' of the ummah, all of your wrong actions are forgiven. Nothing remains. It's like the day you were born. By consensus. Whereas the tawbah of a Muslim, khilaf. In other words, if Allah wants, He can accept it. If He doesn't, He can reject it. But you should have a hope that He does, because we have raja. But don't be absolutely certain. In other words, that'll put fear in you from not returning to it another time. All right?